Well, this went pretty much as expected. The Huskies proven to be too much for the Falcons. Uh, on top of that, Liam Zarka likely out for the season. UConn wins this one 26-16 over Air Force. Any chances that Air Force had of winning this game sort of went out the window with Zarka's injury. We're never able to really get back into this game. Air Force did do a good job at limiting the quarterback. Really didn't have his best day and actually got his first pick of the season. The Falcons, um, you know, kudos to them for that. Cam Edwards had a huge day running the ball. He had 165 yards, 2 touchdowns. In this game, he passed the 1,000-yard mark on the season. Kemper Hodges, the fullback, would come in and play quarterback the rest of the game, just doing what he could. Owen Allen was the leading rusher on the day. He had 122 yards running the ball. Dylan Carson had 58 yards. He had 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. Air Force stood in it for most of the game, but really couldn't close out on this one. UConn moves to 8-3 on the season, 6-0 at home. As for Air Force, they're now 3-7 on the season. The only thing they can do at this point is look forward to next season, getting healthy and just improving, defensively, but just overall. This was a legitimate UConn team that the Falcons dropped this game to, so definitely no slouch. A team that was in, if they weren't independents, would be certainly in the running for a conference title somewhere. It's UConn over Air Force. 26-16 is your final score. This was a game that was way closer than it should have been, but something you run into late in the season against a team that has everything to lose and a team that has nothing to lose. New Mexico escapes with a victory at home against Colorado State, 20-17. Their first win against Colorado State since 2009, I believe. Despite going into halftime up 10-0, they come out second half just very lethargic. The Lobos, and after getting within the red zone of Colorado State, a costly fumble has the ball going the other way. Colorado State would take advantage of crucial penalty, drive downfield. Even then, the Lobo defense would come up big and make another stop. Colorado State would punt the ball away. It's sort of been these special team woes for the Lobos, where just not fair catching it and catching the ball in play has had huge effects for them. So the punt returner fair catches it, but lets the ball roll back into their 5-yard line. From there, the first play, Scott Trey Humphrey fumbles, and Colorado State has the ball in excellent field position. The Lobos would have 4 turnovers in this game. Really sloppy football coming off of a bye week for them. The good news for the Lobos is that their defense has gotten better a little bit every week, and now they have a pretty stout defense. Darius Curry threw 3 picks in this game, coming in after Broussard goes out with an injury. I think the Lobos, just let Colorado State stick around for far too long. They could add more points in the first half, gone up maybe 13, 17 points into halftime. Even in the second half, I think early in the third quarter, they made so many mistakes that allowed for the Rams to stick in this game and make it competitive through the final stretches. Colorado State now goes to 2-8 in this season, 1-5 in conference play. As for the Lobos, they're now 7-3 on the season, 4-2 in conference play. Still very much in Mountain West title conversation. And from here, you have to be feeling pretty confident. Despite those turnovers, you can clean those up relatively easily. But I mean, their defense is playing really well. They have enough weapons offensively to be a threat to the remaining teams on the schedule. Even though the Lobos have shown to sort of play down to their competition, I think they're motivated now. I think X got them believing in themselves and what they could accomplish the rest of the way. They will take advantage of Liam Zarka injury against Air Force next week before coming back home for Thanksgiving to face the number 1 team in San Diego State. So plenty of optimism for the Lobos. No one expected this going into the season, and here they are, everything in front of them. Lobos win this one 20-17 over Colorado State. Everyone in the Mountain West owes Nevada an apology for coming into this game with no chance. Uh, they demolished San Jose State 55-10 is the final score. Um, Carter Jones played his best game of the season. 195 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. Caleb Ramsey, 128 yards rushing with a rushing score. Chuba Purdy comes in. He has 51 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown. The real storyline is Walker Eget. 3 picks in this game, ends up getting benched. Bad play from San Jose State, and we've seen this before where they've had good performances and then they come out playing like this against the bottom team in the Mountain West and get absolutely destroyed. With this loss goes San Jose State's bowl game aspirations. A bad defeat where at this point all they can do is play spoilers for the last 2 games on their schedule. This was good for Nevada to finally get a great win despite their record. These guys look to win these games, and all the stuff that they've been through this season, it's good for them to get a home win, really put on a spanking on the Spartans, and just something to cheer about for their fans. Now for Nevada, just keep it up. You got Wyoming on the road next week, and you come back home, you got UNLV to finish off the season. Just keep up the momentum. Maybe they can sneak out some more wins to wrap it up. As for San Jose State, despite how bad they looked against the Wolfpack this weekend, they can very much come back and take on San Diego State and be competitive and finish off with Fresno State, a team that's also lacking offensively. At this point, all they can do is hope to spoil the teams they face and maybe do a little bit of stat padding for some of their players. A season that did not go their way, not a season that they weren't expecting to have. They're now 1-4 through their last 5 games. Your starting quarterback being benched after throwing 3 picks, a guy who was supposedly one of the best quarterbacks in the Mountain West going into this season. And despite having some really great performances against some quality teams, he hasn't looked the best the past 3-4 weeks. Nevada wins this one 55-10 over San Jose State. We should have expected a close, entertaining clash between Utah State and UNLV going at it. UNLV, would have to go into 2 overtimes to get it done, but they win this one 29-26 over Utah State. Kicking woes for Utah State would leave UNLV still in this game. 3 missed field goals for kicker Tanner Rinker. Bryson Barnes had one of his vintage days, 256 yards through the air, a passing touchdown. He had another 124 yards running the ball with a rushing score. Anthony Calandra had a pair of touchdowns on the day, 1 rushing, 1 scoring. He did have a pick in this game early on. They did not have Jaden Thomas to rely on, the Rebels, for this game. As is the story all year, it's UNLV, escaping with a win, at home, against a good team. What this does, now Utah State's, out of the running. They have 3 losses on the season in conference play. They're still 1 game away from getting that crucial 6th win on the season, and I think there's room to get that in the next couple of weeks. As for UNLV, now 8-2 on the season, 4-2 in conference play. Everything's still there in front of them. They're going to need some help from some other schools to get them back in that top 2 conversation, but they're still very much there. Overall, Bronco Mendenhall and Utah State would like to have this game. They felt like there's opportunities where they could have won this game. Despite that, they're still sitting pretty good. 5-5 on the season, 3-3 in conference play. Not bad for year 1 Mendenhall season. And still 2 games left. They can still get a win or 2 to end the season and successful year. UNLV, they win this one, another close one, but that's just the way they play football at this point. A team that if they're favored, you still probably wouldn't feel comfortable taking a spread on them because they squeak these wins out. And maybe that's not so bad to have a team that at least has the intangibles on their side. They've been in so many of these close games all year long that maybe you feel confident, through these final 2 games. And if they're fortunate enough to find themselves in a Mountain West title game, that they can maybe squeak one of these wins out and really phenomenal finish to their season in Dan Mullen's first year. It's UNLV getting the win over Utah State in overtime. 29-26 is your final score. Okay, now I get it. I get why sports makers were favoring San Diego State. I get why there was uncertainty with Cutforth at the helm at quarterback. Atrocious offense from Boise State in this game. Could get nothing going. It was a clash between two struggling offenses, at least passing the ball, and two running games that were going head to head. It was a carry of the load for Dylan Riley and Sire Gaines, both 70-plus yards running on the day. But it was a better rushing attack from Lucky Sutton and Christian Washington, along with Denegal getting a pair of rushing scores in there. Sutton would put up 158 yards, Washington 98 yards. Both these teams, lackluster passing attack, and for Cutforth, it felt like he's playing with a hand behind his back. The play calling really wasn't favorable towards a passing attack. 12 for 18, 140 yards on the day. As for Denegal, 6 for 10, 17 yards on the day. But they don't really need it. They get this one pretty convincingly, 17-7 victory. Solid defenses going at it, but San Diego State proving to be a legitimate defense that really shut down the Broncos' offense entirely, including their running game. A game that was a grind 'em out type of game that saw the only touchdowns coming in the second quarter, but the first, third, and fourth were it's a punting game and field goals and missed field goals. It didn't help that this was a muggy game filled with rain. A game that when in doubt you rely on the running game. San Diego State was just more effective in that aspect. And now we know San Diego State is legit. 8-2 on the season, 5-1 in conference play. It's theirs to lose right now. I would like to think that they're a lock for one of those top two spots. As for Boise State, now 6-4 in the season, 4-2 in conference play. They're going to need some help from some other teams to find themselves back in the Mountain West game, depending on if Maddox Madsen can return in time, because right now Max Cutforth does not appear to be the guy. Now for Boise State, at this point, depending if Madsen can come back in time, you got a game against Colorado State. Then you got a game against Utah State to finish the season. Utah State can put up a lot of points. They're a dangerous team that if they drop that game to end the season, it's it for them. They find themselves in a lesser bowl game. A repeat as Mountain West champions. They have to win the last two games of the season. As for San Diego State, they finished the season off with San Jose State, who most recently got killed against Nevada on the road, but still a team that you definitely can't take lightly. And if they get the passing game figured out again, they're a dangerous team. So they can't take San Jose State lightly, and they finish off their season on the road, taking on New Mexico. Definitely one of the most dangerous teams in the Mountain West, a team that's eager to at least, win this game and find themselves in a Mountain West title game. A game that, if they drop that game, they may go right back to New Mexico the week after and face them in a Mountain West title game if everything works out that way. As is the story with, the rest of the teams that have 2 losses on the season right now. It is best if you can just win out the next 2 weeks. As for San Diego State, if they win the next 2 games, they're a lock. For Boise State, they need to win the next 2 games to be pretty much a lock. I think they're going to need some help from some other teams to lose, but just win the next 2 games and you can find yourself in your best chance of getting to a Mountain West title game. San Diego State wins this one 17-7 over Boise State. I have to give Fresno State credit on this one. I didn't think it would be this big of a margin of victory for them. I thought it'd be closer than it was. Fresno State wins this one 24-3 over Wyoming. Complete lack of offense from Wyoming. Kane Anderson had another bad performance. 6 for 23, 64 yards and a pick on the day. Mason Druby would end up coming in to replace him in the rest of the game. Carson Conklin would have his best game of the season. 95 yards, touchdown on the day. Rayshawn, Luke, and Arsenex really carried this offense for the Bulldogs. Bryson Donaldson came in, had 45 yards and a touchdown himself. Really, Wyoming just found themselves, punting nearly every drive. Topped that off with an interception. They just could get nothing going of any substance. Team that only saw 9 first downs in this game. They were 3 for 15 on third down conversions. Topped that off with nearly 100 yards in penalties. Wyoming just found themselves not in this game. A game that was still much closer than it appears. 2 final touchdowns in the fourth quarter would do it for Fresno State. And now for Wyoming, you really just don't feel confident that they can win the next 2 games, find themselves in a bowl game this season. Despite, one of those games being against Nevada, you also have Hawaii on that schedule, and they may lose both those games because there's, 0 offense from them. As for Fresno State, they're sitting in a pretty good position. They do have a tough matchup against Utah State next week, and they finish it off with San Jose State, despite their record, who may give them a tough game to end the season. They need to win those 2 games to find themselves with a chance to be in the Mountain West title game. For Wyoming, they're going to really need to go back to the drawing board. If they can win against Nevada, that's it's a winnable game. But if they can win against Nevada, then they're 1 game away, and then they will be super motivated to take on Hawaii to finish the season and maybe get an upset there. As for Fresno State, they're now 7-3 on the year. They're 4-2 in conference play. They can win the next 2 games with some shuffling in the Mountain West over the next couple of weeks. They could find themselves in a title game. Fresno State winning this one 24-3 over Wyoming.